Welcome everyone to the Electrical Culture of Safety Livewire program, where we delve into all the complexities of creating a culture of safety within the electric utility industry. In each episode, we feature interviews with subject matter experts, industry leaders, safety professionals, and field personnel from across the industry, where we discuss ways to develop a collective reflection of the perception, attitudes, and shared experiences of the safety culture within our industry. Welcome to ECOS Livewire.
Hey, Brent.
Good afternoon, Michael.
How you
Mr.
doing,
Barr,
brother?
how you doing?
Doing well.
Good.
It's been a while since we've had opportunity to record.
Man, had some birthdays and graduations, and it's like a lot of things happening out there.
Yeah. You had a wedding in your family?
Weddings, and actually one of our family members passed a month ago since we last saw each other, and
Right.
you know, just so many things happening, a lot of dynamics, and you know, it's similar to line work. I mean, there's so many things that are just happening every single day, all day long, and even through the night. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's called life.
Yeah, that's all it is. Exactly.
It's life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of positives, and sometimes there's some negatives.
Yeah.
You know? And
Well,
you just get up every day and do it again.
yeah. And you're safe on your motorcycle journey throughout the West, correct?
Yep.
Mhm.
It was an amazing experience, and telling you earlier, I did about 3,000 miles in 11 days, and
Dang.
that's rough on someone of my advanced age. So, but,
Yeah, you gotta get some.
trying to stay young, man. I don't want the old man to get in, you know. So,
Yeah, no, you gotta get some. You gotta get some booty rest now, and
that's right.
I think how did you land Mr. John Corum, man? As far as our
Well,
guest for today.
I've been following John for a couple years now. I got involved and started following the Linemen Take a Stand for Safety on Facebook, and I used to put some things on there occasionally, and I did some videos and some other things, and then here a couple years ago, I started noticing every Sunday morning, because it's Safety Sunday,
Yeah.
that John was putting things out there. And I've told John this, and I've told you this. This is when I get up every Sunday morning, I brew a pot of coffee and I sit down at the bar in the living room, and I bring up Facebook and I see what John's got to say for that day, and I look forward to that every Sunday. So
Yeah.
um,
When I read John's posts, what's kind of cool is, you're getting ready for Monday, you're winding down from the weekend, and John's posts, his words and his wisdom and his experience, it just kind of gets in your blood where you got to have it, and it kind of prepares you to where you're fit for duty for the next day, even though you're not on duty.
Yeah. Well, what I love about it, and I know John's listening, what I love about John's posts is they're so direct. There's no nonsense. It's just, just do it, man.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so
Do it.
that's what I love about it. So I'm excited to have John on. I really am.
Yeah, man.
And I want to just give everybody a little bit of introduction to John, because he's got a pretty impressive background here. John has been employed at Cleveland Utilities Authority in Cleveland, Tennessee since 2013, where he began as safety director. He currently serves as the Vice President of Administrative Services with direct oversight of corporate safety for electric, water, and wastewater divisions. He has 32 years of utility industry experience, including working as a journeyman lineman at Knoxville Utilities Board in Knoxville, Tennessee, and as a CTE faculty member at Western Nebraska Community College in Alliance, Nebraska, where he taught utility power line construction and maintenance. John is active in the utility safety space, often speaking at utility safety conferences, conducting training across the Southeast U.S., and as an adjunct instructor at Tennessee Valley Public Authority Association, and advocating for safety leadership at a wide variety of other education and training events. He has a bachelor's and master's degree from Tennessee, Knoxville, and a doctorate from the University of Texas in Austin. So I'm really pleased to welcome Dr. John Corum
Yeah.
to the podcast, man. Great to have you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And I really try to dodge that doctor title. I prefer people just call me John. So, man, what a privilege to be with you guys today. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and spend a little time with you guys talking about the thing that's most near and dear to my heart. And that's safety.
Yeah. Well, that's why Brett and I, we kicked around doing this podcast, and we just decided that, because there's a lot of great content out there. There's a lot of people in this space that are doing a lot of great things. And, but we wanted to try something a little different, and try to focus specifically on the safety aspect, and not so much to get into, what's required and what isn't required, and regulate. We don't talk a lot about regulations or anything. It's more about that human element. How can we change what's going on in our industry? Because as you know, John, because you follow Linemen Take a Stand for Safety, and so you see all of these incidents as they're reported. And man, I'll tell you what, we go through some periods where it just seems like daily there is a contact, and because that's what's going on for the most part is contact. That's how we're losing people, with contact. So we wanted to kind of get you on and kind of get your perspective about that. And usually when we start out with a guest, the first thing we want to do is kind of, get your background, where you come from, how you got where you're at, your Livewire story. So, yeah.
Yeah. I started in the utility industry in the early 90s, 1992. And a couple years into my career there, I found myself into a line worker apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. And was very fortunate to work with some terrific people there and get some great opportunities to learn about the trade and all the things that are associated with it, the brotherhood, all the things that we talk about and all the things that we know this trade means to so many people. Yeah. And having to get to experience that was really the opportunity of a lifetime. People ask me a lot about my education level, but what I always come back to is say, what I'm most proud about is that IBEW Journeyman Lineman card. Mm-hmm. I worked as hard for that thing as I did for any of the formal education degrees that I hold. So, but being a part of that, it really means something. I equate it to being in the military. I was in the military in the Navy, and it's just a camaraderie that if you're, when you're in those circles, you really understand it. And line work is that. One of the things that kind of set my course, though, Mike, and my time working in the trade was an accident of a fellow coworker. He was a gentleman who was really my locker mate. I worked as an apprentice under him, and he was killed in a tragic accident. And it really, that day is forever etched in my mind, number one. And number two, it really changed my perspective. Yeah, it was one of those moments in your life where you get a 180-degree turnabout. There's not many of those things that happen or that have happened to me over the course of my life, but that is certainly one of them. And really got me thinking a lot about safety, a lot about safety culture, and much later I've been able to get to connect that to leadership, and really a defining moment in my career. And that happened in 2004, in February of 2004. And I can promise you that there's still not a day that I'm not thinking about that event and how it has shaped my life and shaped my thought and shaped my behavior. So that's that's where I cut my teeth there. Then I went on to teach at a power line program in Western Nebraska. And really that was born out of the opportunity to just contribute to the industry. I think we have an obligation to contribute back to the industry that's, for me, has given me so much. I've been able to provide for my family for, the last 34 years because of the industry. And that was just a great opportunity for me to give back in ways that I can contribute. And then about 2013, my father fell ill, and I decided I needed to get a little closer to him and back to Tennessee. So I come to Cleveland Utilities Authority in Cleveland, Tennessee, and began working as a safety director. And really, I've enjoyed my path. It's been a tremendous blessing to come from the ranks and now into a leadership role where I can, really hopefully influence safety and what it means for future generations of line workers.
Excellent. Yeah, it's interesting, how many people that end up in safety that become passionate about that have something in their background that triggered them, right? I have a similar story in that I had a flash incident many years ago, and that kind of changed my perspective a bit. And then about a year and a half later, one of the individuals that I work with was doing some work in some 2400 volt gear at a substation and was severely burned. And that's when I started that's when I changed my perspective as well, and started to put a lot of pressure on management. And one thing just kind of led to another, and before I knew it, I was the safety guy. And I've been doing that for almost 40 years now. So it sometimes takes that event to change your perspective, especially when you see someone you care about either lose their life or their life is changed because of that injury.
Yeah, absolutely. I think up to that point, I don't believe that I thought I could get hurt doing line work.
Exactly.
And then when I saw someone who I deeply respected and was at the top of his game lose his life, then I come to realize, hey, maybe I'm not as invincible as I think I am.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really caused a lot of self-reflection for me to really be thinking about, hey, people die doing this work.
Yes.
And on a regular occurrence.
Yes.
And but I also believe that it doesn't have to be that way.
Correct.
And that's kind of been my mission over the last 20 years, is to contribute in such a way that it doesn't have to be normalized for line work. And I don't believe that. I don't believe it with all my heart.
Exactly. And what you said was prior to that, you didn't believe it could ever happen, right? I mean, it was, and that's one of the biggest problems in our industry, John, is that we have a very high level of optimism bias, in that nobody thinks it can happen to them. No supervisor, no foreman believes that it's going to happen to them or the crew until it does.
Yes, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of bred into us. You know,
Yes.
when we are working our way through our apprenticeships, you know, we're learning and growing at a rate that's that a lot of people don't ever experience again. And then when you get in those situations where you're working in the trade day in, day out, through storms, through all kinds of opportunities to get to work, and you have some close calls and you escape them, and you attribute it to your skill level, or you attribute it to your knowledge about the trade. When really, when you cut to the chase, you really start examining those. A lot of those are just pure luck.
Correct.
You know, you escaped by some miraculous means.
Just wasn't your day.
Yeah, and when you start to take a look at them, then you start to realize, hey, I missed a great opportunity to leave this earth.
Yeah.
And not because of anything that I probably contributed to it. But I do think that, you know, one of our biggest challenges is to help journeyman linemen understand that the process continues. I never really started learning line work until I topped out. When I become a journeyman and that responsibility fell on my shoulders to be in the bucket every day, to have an apprentice beside me, that's when the learning really started for me. And I can tell you here, you know, 32 years into my career, I'm learning more every day about safety than I can imagine 20 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that you know, we wanted to kind of focus on today, of course, is leadership. And back in January, you did a Safety Sunday, and it is something that has really stuck with me, John. And I hope you don't mind, but I use your quote in every class I teach. Awesome. And I read it to people, and I think that it is so spot on and so critical in our industry that we get this part of it fixed in some way. And I want to read that. This was January 7th of this year. Now, if you remember this one, but this is what you wrote. You said, leadership is not for the faint of heart. It requires courage and commitment. It requires skill and knowledge, empathy and understanding. The list goes on, and it is a big list.
Yes.
But I believe foremen are the key to reducing fatalities on the job. They are on the front lines ensuring safe work practices are being executed. If you're a foreman who lives and breathes safety, your crew will follow, and they will live, and the work will get done. Make 2024 the safest it can be. And this is how you end all your Safety Sundays, and I love it. Decide, do, right? Yes, so what prompted you to write that? I mean, because I love it. It's so true.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I have been grappling with the leadership thing for a while, but because I do think that the foremen really are the key. They're a key player in all this. And I remember back to the times where I worked on line crews with foremen, and the foreman really drives the culture and really drives the value system of his crew. So if the foreman shows up and he is a stickler about the safety rules, he enforces PPE and wearing it the correct way. He helps the guys understand hazard recognition and hazard control, and he is systematic in his job safety briefings. He dots I's and crosses T's. That crew will follow his lead, period.
Yes.
This, our trade is very much hierarchical. So the person that's in that foreman role, most of the time, there are some exceptions, but most of the time has been in the trade a while. He has is well respected, has a good level of knowledge, and the guys will follow his lead. So, and on the flip side of that, if he's lackadaisical about safety, he does his job safety briefings in the cab of his truck at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He doesn't drive and enforce safety on his job sites. The guys will also follow that lead.
That's
and
correct.
you'll see behaviors and that are not congruent with safe work practice.
Yes.
And when we see that, then the opportunities for SIFs are much greater on those teams. And then I think the second level is our management leadership.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? That's the question that I've been grappling with myself. Is how can John contribute to this?
Right.
What are the things that I can put into place? What's the influence that I can exert on the system that makes the system safe to fail in? Because I think that's really very important. One of the things we got to remember is people are going to make mistakes.
Correct.
People are fallible. So what we got to do is build systems that allow for safe failures. And we can do that. There's a lot of framework that's already out there that's built for us. If we look at safety manuals, if we look at the OSHA 1910-269, we've got a framework for safe work. We have that in place. What we need is people who will take that and put it in the field and put those practices to work and make sure that they are enforced and there's accountability when they're not.
Correct.
And when we do that, we've got a much greater chance of reducing serious injuries and fatalities in our trade, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree, John. And one of the things that we see a lot, and Brett and I have talked about this a little bit and with some of our other guests, is that our industry, of course, is very reactive. We're always looking in the past instead of looking forward. And it's so common for an incident to occur. We have a SIF and we just create more rules. We just make the book thicker, right? And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so our safety process becomes kind of cumbersome. It becomes, and you were right on. We already have the framework. We have what we need. Are we missing any regulations? Have we missed something? I don't believe we have. And you're absolutely right. Leadership is the key to this. One of the keys to this is how do you feel about me? As I go out there and I've done investigations and I get out and I visit crews as often as I can, a lot of times the guy running that crew is the guy that was the best at getting work done. He built things the best and the fastest, but he sometimes isn't really a leader. Leadership isn't derived from status or position. It's just because you're a supervisor doesn't mean you're a leader. So how are we missing there, John? Well, what can we do to better train our leadership to understand that role?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it starts with hiring. I think it starts at that level. So when we're evaluating who's going to be the next foreman, most of the guys in the pool that have applied for those roles have the skill set. So we're not talking about can you do line work, but that's usually how the conversation turns. Then just because you're a great lineman doesn't mean you'll be a great foreman. Those are very different roles. It's the same thing with teaching, right? Just because you're good at the trade doesn't mean you're going to be a great apprentice teacher.
Right.
And I think the same is for leadership. But we have to set the standard, I think, on the front end when we're hiring and promoting folks into those roles. to get a commitment. Where do you stand with leadership? What does leadership mean to you? And asking those kind of questions in the interviews, not just tell me about your work experience. That work experience is critical, and I don't want to undermine it. But there's another element here of leadership that we have to drill into, and we have to make sure that people understand this is a completely different role. When I talk to foremen, I tell them, you guys are no longer one of the boys. It feels like you are, right? You're still wearing the boots. You're still wearing the FR clothing to work. You're still in the hard hat. But when the crap hits the fan and there's an investigation, you're going to be asked management level questions, not the same questions that the guys on your crew is going to be asked. So are you prepared for those? Have you taken the time? Do you understand the rules? One of the questions that I will bring up in foreman interviews is, tell me what you know about the National Electric Safety Code.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you'll find out who's really serious about safety. The National Electric Safety Code has been around, Mike, for over 100 years.
Yep.
As a lineman, I will readily admit I never cracked the book open. I didn't know the difference between the National Electric Safety Code and the National Electric Code as a journeyman lineman.
Right.
It should not be that way. So when we are talking and we are educating and we're speaking at conferences, one of the things I bring up is, guys, you have to educate yourself about leadership. Pick up a leadership book. Learn things about your trade, learn things about safety, and learn things about leadership, because at the foreman level, you are accountable for all three of those things.
Right. And it's not just, like we've said, it's not just about, building power lines. These guys, everybody that comes to work has something on their mind. Everybody is experiencing, whether it's problems at home, whether it's financial, whether it's, behind on their mortgages, these guys have life going on outside of work.
Yeah.
And you've got to have some empathy. You've got to understand where people's heads are at. It's not just about building power line. And I really believe that every one of these guys has the DNA to become a safety leader. There's a few that you got to weed out that just simply don't have the skills or the desire, to be a leader. That, you got to have that desire. And there's a lot of stuff you got to deal with to get through that day without that SIF. And that's what it's all about, is getting these guys home every single night to their families. And if that isn't your right on the top, man, you maybe shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it really is a shift in how you think about line work, because you go, in the words of Simon Sinek, he says that leadership is not about doing the work. It's about being in charge of the people who do the work.
Correct.
And that is a very different seat to sit in. When you go from doing the work, being in the bucket, to observing the work and being responsible for the safety of the people that are doing the work, man, that's a whole different skill set, a whole different attitude, a whole different aptitude.
Yes, it is. It is. Brent, I can tell you've got a couple questions swimming around in your head up there.
What I see, John and Mike, as far as the leadership, apprentices, they're trained in the mechanics of line work, as far as beginning and learning climbing and the do's and don'ts, the rules. But what I see a lack of, and we're talking about leadership, is we need to start instilling into this new generation, the new linemen. We need to start instilling immediately, right away. I mean, like day one, just lightly. And we need to start instilling into folks leadership skills. Why are we waiting until someone becomes a foreman, and then all of a sudden we expect him to have leadership skills? And I think, like you said, Mike, you brought up the fact that you believe we have safety in our DNA, everybody. And, we do. And I believe that we need to start tapping into that leadership skills that is also in our DNA, the safety that's in our DNA, the communication abilities that's in our DNA, that so many things that are out there suppress it, hide it, cover it up. And I believe we need to bring in leadership day one. I mean, when we do a job brief, we need to have apprentices. We need to have them participate and allow it and encourage it. We need to bring in respect. We need to bring in sharing and the ability to collaborate with one another in the leadership, not just the leader, but okay. So I think that's where we're lacking as far as, if you could say, what's the negative side of leadership? I think that's a lot of the negative side, that we need to start bringing in our skills. We need to start bringing in our training, is leadership itself. And that's a subject that, I don't know, man. If you look at the curriculum for line colleges or community colleges that bring in the technical skills and all this stuff, I don't see it. And it really doesn't make sense to me why it's not included. And then not only that, but why don't we bring in things like recognizing trigger points, recognizing words? Words have so many powerful meanings. When someone speaks a word, like Billy Martin is so good at this, like, I think so, it should be okay. These are words that we need to pause, and we need to find a foundation instead of going through on sand, going through in the mud, because we're going to get stuck. And we need to analyze these things and discuss these things, sweep the sand out of the way, and dig down until we find bedrock before we move forward.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point, Brent. And when I think about just your own experiences, right? The things that I have, probably 90% of the things I've learned about leadership, I've had to seek out on my own.
Yes.
Even in business schools, they're not teaching 4-year business graduates. They teach them about management. They do not teach them about leadership.
Yes.
And you're exactly right. And it has created a vacuum. And I think you're exactly right. I think it does. We do need to be talking to journeyman linemen. We do need to be talking to apprentices about the impact that leadership can have on the trade.
Yeah.
And on our organizations.
Absolutely. And, when we mentioned it, when you pluck a guy from the field and you plop him down in that leadership position now, and now he's gonna, because here's the thing, anybody who thinks that their crews are out there following the rules every single day, they're very misguided, because shortcuts are being taken every single day by every crew out there. It's just fact, right?
Yeah.
And so now you take a guy, you pluck him from the field and put him down as the foreman. What have we done to help him now all of a sudden have the courage to say, guys, I know that's the way we used to do it, but we're going to change. Even though he knows they're doing things that maybe just ain't quite right, because guys are going to take that shortcut to get things done. They just are. That's the way linemen are. We've all done it, and it happens. But that's a hard thing to do, is to all of a sudden, take these guys to, and all of a sudden they got to have the courage now to tell the guys they've worked with for the last 15 years, we're going to change the way we do things. And what's happening, John and Brand, is that most of the time they just keep doing it the same way. It's still all about getting the line built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's 100% right. I've told just about everybody over the course of my 32-year career, being a safety director is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how much resistance you will get by trying to get people home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And for those guys that are in the trenches, just like what you said, Mike, for the guys that are in the trenches, having those kind of conversations really takes a change in culture.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's a change in not just my organization or your organization, it's a change in the entire industry.
Yeah.
That's required. We need to think about safety differently as an industry, or we're going to keep seeing fatalities.
Oh, exactly. And I'm telling you, the perception, I've mentioned a couple other podcasts, a while back, John, there was was posted in one of the Linemen's subreddit groups, and it was a triangle, a pyramid, and at the top you had an engineer. On one side you had human resources, on the other safety, and it said the caption was the holy trinity of uselessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, yeah, it's funny, and but the comments that were coming from linemen about how they felt about safety and management and rules, it was astounding to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, no kidding, no wonder now I get it, and I understand maybe there's some safety. There's people out there that, in my view, don't know how to be an effective safety person. They're just like there's foremen that maybe shouldn't be foremen. There's people that get into safety that probably should not be there, and I get that. It's a process, and you learn. And I learned very early on when I got into the safety profession, and it's what I tell every single person that I've brought up and mentored. You can't be that cop, These are your teammates, and that's what Brett and I talk about this all the time. It's a team, and if the safety guy isn't part of that team, it's going to be rough, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough. It's a team. It's no longer a crew. It's no longer us versus them, because if it is, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. I kind of think it's kind of like a tug of war in my mind in a lot of ways. We can choose to put our heads together and build on what we know and each other knows. And when we do that, we just put another set of hands on that rope, right? That gets us where we want to go. But so many times and in so many organizations, and I've seen this, and I know you guys have too, is that we silo. So we've got operations over here in this group, and then we've got safety over here. And safety is what safety people do. Operations people do real work. And that mentality gets people hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. It takes everybody. We need engineers to engineer out hazards. We need safety folks to help us understand how the rules apply to what we do. And there is no operations without safety, and there is no safety without operations, right? There's no need for safety if we don't have folks in harm's way, and there's no need to have that work and killing people without pulling safety folks into the conversation. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing. That's get home to our families.
That's right.
So, John, you brought up a point that is quite excellent as far as modularization and compartmentalization. As far as basically, I'll bring up another bad TIO word, which is isolation and separation. after going through the utility industry all these years, investor owns, municipalities, electric cooperatives, I have noticed, and this is the truth. I have noticed a distinct difference in everybody's safety culture. I mean, bar none. And I don't mean to talk about your last name, Mike. Bar none. Okay, we got to have a little laugh here once in a while. But without a doubt, and it is uncannily true, that when I see the CEOs, when I see them diving in to the safety culture and bringing all these different departments, bringing all these different departments together and taking all the barriers and smashing them down, I have seen it. I can give you guys so many examples. It's unbelievable. And when that comes from the top down, then you start getting buy-in also from the bottom up. And then you see that team, that line team attitude. I've seen it in huge companies. I've seen it in very small companies. But you recognize and you see the dynamics of the line team attitude and the buy-in. And what happens, and this is crazy, and I've unfortunately, like you guys have talked about earlier, I have seen this where it becomes evident and becomes true after a fatality.
Yeah.
And that's sad. And why are we waiting for that moment? Why are we waiting for that moment, a fatality, and we put someone in the ground to be the defining moment that we say, hey, let's start bringing everybody together and let's start valuing. Now this is so important. And let's start investing in people. Okay? Everybody talks about 401ks. Everybody talks about stock market. Everybody talks about this big nest egg. But those things are diversions and they're distractions of the most important and the most valuable treasure that we have. And that's right in front of our eyes,
Yep.
One another.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And you're right. Well, the problem is, we talked about earlier, Brent, nobody thinks it's going to happen to their company. No, we don't have to. It's not going to happen. We're dialed in. We got the best trained people. They got everything they need to do the job. They're doing job briefings every day, and every single fatality, every SIF that we have, I guarantee you in the last 15, 20 years, there's been a job briefing done for that job before they went to work. Nobody believes it's going to happen to them, Brent and John. And so when it happens, they go, oh my gosh, and we start writing new rules, and we're always looking in the past. We're never looking forward. And it's a problem in our industry. It is.
I love the comment, Brent, and that's exactly right. And that's where I found myself. So 20 years ago, when I was kind of grappling with the death of my coworker, that's the questions that I have been asking myself for 2 decades now. Is that why do we have to wait until we kill somebody to follow the rules or do the things that we know we need to be doing?
Yep.
And in line shops that have not had a fatality, they don't think it can happen.
Correct.
That's the bottom line. The line shops that can, they point fingers a lot of times.
Yes.
It's that whole, well, if he would have done X, then Y would not have happened.
Yeah, it's always John. Well, he violated MAD. He didn't put his cover up. And it's always the fault of the individual.
That's right.
Well, there's a reason why he didn't do that. It's the culture drives everything those guys do.
100%. And that is one of the things that I have been trumpeting for a while, is this idea about systems thinking. it is the system that you live in. Okay. And to Brent's point, when you get the CEO involved, that CEO, it's the system. Okay. It's not just the line shop is one component of a much larger system that gets people home. And having the CEO sit in your safety meeting or sit in some kind of training that you have, or mention safety as a core value at gatherings for the organization. Those things matter. They matter tremendously.
They do.
But, even his piece is still just a component of a large system that we're all swimming in, right?
Right.
It's culture. And to change culture, it's not one factor. There are many factors. And that's the challenge of leadership, is how do we infiltrate all the component parts so that the whole becomes safe?
Exactly.
And the whole becomes a place where people can work for 30 years and not experience an injury or fatality.
That's correct.
Yes.
And one of the things too, when we talk about culture, and if it's not like, how many line companies do we have out there? How many utilities do we have out there? And every single one of them have a different culture.
Yeah. Every
one of them. So it's not like you just put out a paper and say, well, if everybody does this, right, we'll eliminate, and some people think it's that easy, but it's a hard thing. And it has to start with every single company, every CEO, every president, they have to be the one that starts that process.
Yeah.
And until that happens, we're going to continue to see it.
Yeah. So what I've recognized, and David McPeak helped me recognize this a few years ago, is that the organization must be in unity with the employees, management, the beginning apprentice, CEO. They have to be in line, in unity completely. And you can't have a line team unless you're on level playing field. And I'll give you guys an example. This is amazing. So you all have heard and seen what is called the energy wheel, right? As far as recognizing those things that could cause an incident because there's energy inside that thing, right? Right?
Yeah. I have one on my fridge.
Yeah. Now, but think about this. This is the insanity of our construct. Okay. This is the insanity. Think about this. So what we're doing is we're looking at elements. Okay. We're looking at elements, earthly elements. And we're saying these earthly elements determine the energy wheel. Am I right or wrong?
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Think about this. What is our bodies? What are our bodies constructed of? Elementary. What are they of? What are they?
Just elements.
Elements.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talk about electricity as one of the energy wheel components. Okay. But the thing that we're missing in this energy wheel is people.
Yeah.
See, that's what's causing the problem.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the earthly elements that our job brief is about.
No.
At all.
It's how people are responding to that.
It's how they're responding. It's how they're not connecting with one another. Like you said, John, we believe that line work is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. And we believe it because that's what we are told, and that's what we keep reciting back. All right? And what we're doing is we don't have the most important element inside the energy wheel at the very top of the wheel, which should be added, which is people.
People. Behavior. People. Yeah. Good point, Brent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's none of it's easy. It really isn't. And
Mhm.
and until every single company, every CEO, every president, every manager understands that, and understands that they are responsible for putting the wheels in motion to help create that culture.
Yes.
This when I've done training all over the world. I've been to many countries, and I've been in every kind of facility. And the thing that really upsets me, it doesn't upset me, but I can tell that people aren't dialed in when you walk in and you see a sign that says safety is our number one priority. Well, safety shouldn't be a priority. The number one priority is making money. And if anybody's telling you making money is the number one, but you can't make money if you don't do it safely. Safety has got to be not a priority, but it's got to be the culture. It's got to be that it's got to be ingrained in everything we do. Because priorities change.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at it that way, because I'm telling you, and I can show you examples of companies that have decided to take a shortcut because it was going to cost them too much money to do it the way that it was designed, and people have gotten killed. Because it should be okay. Just like you mentioned earlier, Brent, when you hear, it'll probably be okay. That tells you right there that you don't think it's going to be okay, that there's a chance something's going to go wrong, and it's a tough one, guys.
So John, give us some answers, man. Give us in this part of leadership. Give us some We need, our industry needs solutions. And you've been delving into this and being a part of this matrix of harm and pain and mourning and earth moving and bearing. It's unbelievable. And losing body parts. You've seen it. You've heard it. You know all about this. We need answers, man. Like, what can we do to encourage the leadership to grow, not hold it to themselves, but share it? What steps? I mean, we need help. We need help as an industry. And it seems to me that everybody knows we need help, but we're not asking for help. We're looking within, and instead of looking for each other to network and be together. What can we do?
That's the $1 million question, right? So, and I think because of the complexity of it, I mean, we're dealing with people, and that's at the core of whether we're talking about leadership or we're talking about work getting done. We've spent the last few minutes here talking about when you're in the people business. The people business is the most difficult side of the business. It's not the pipes and wires; it's the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, one of the things that I think is a big step forward is the work you're doing with ECOS. It's collaboration. And I really do believe that is essential for us to get beyond where we're at. We're going to have to start collaborating and quit isolating. We've got to quit saying, no, this is our line shop. You don't tell us what to do. Mm-hmm. Or no, this is safety. I know safety. You don't know it. Or this is engineering and you do it this way. I don't care what you think about it. We've got to quit doing that, because at the end of the day, it's costing people their lives. So if we can come to the table and just with the spirit of collaboration, if we would do that just for a solid year, So if every utility would commit, hey, we're going to take our line teams, we're going to take our safety folks, we're going to take our engineers, we're going to take our managers, we're going to come to the table every single day, and we're going to talk about the most important thing here today, and that's getting all these guys back home.
Yeah.
If we would commit to that and lay aside egos, lay aside pride, put on humility, and make people our goal, we would see a shift. But it's going to take all of us.
Yeah.
That management worker clash that's always been there, it does not have to be there. We're on the same ship. And when the ship goes down, we're all going down with it. When there is a fatality in your organization, the manager's hurt as bad as the workers.
Yep.
We're all going the same way. We're on the same team. We got to set aside the petty crap that is standing in the way of us realizing a world, a industry where there's not fatalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the work that you're doing, Brent, to your credit, over the last couple of years is huge. And I think it's a great example of how it can be. Now, it's going to be up to each of our individual utilities to look at this as a model and say, hey, all the components there, and it's working. We're bringing line workers to the table. We're bringing engineers to the table.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing safety professionals to the table. And we are recognizing the strengths of each one of those groups toward a common goal. And that common goal is no more fatalities.
Right.
So I think that collaboration piece is really huge. And I think we're never going to see a change in our systems unless it's driven by collaboration.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well said, man. Very good.
Nice.
Very good. Well, we're right at an hour, guys, and I think I got to be honest. I think we've brought up some really good points. We've had a great discussion, and I can't thank you enough, John, for coming on, and we just so much appreciate everything you do, and like I said, every Sunday morning, man, I got to see what John's got to say today. And I really look forward to that. So
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate your all's passion. It's great to spend time with people who are passionate about this, because a lot of times I know you guys feel it too. You feel you're kind of isolated, right?
Yeah.
You get frustrated with a lot of the processes. You get aggravated, and but there's something still on the side, that light, that passion that burns, that none of that stuff can extinguish. And it's always wonderful to spend time with people who share that. So, man, I really do appreciate the work you guys are doing, and the opportunity to be here with you today is a true blessing.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you said earlier, John, it's and we all feel the same way. We've been brought up and worked our entire lives in an industry that we have so much to be thankful for. It's given us so much, and it's really, and you mentioned this, being the safety guy is not easy, right?
No,
it's not easy. And I talked about that a little bit earlier, and it's not you, but it's just part of the process, and you and I have learned a lot of hard lessons over the years being the safety guy. We've made enemies. We've made people mad. We get, and sometimes we feel like we get the short end of the stick, when it comes to the way, sometimes, and I've felt this, and that sometimes you feel like you're only there because they have to have you there. Yes. It's one of those necessary expenditures that you gotta have, right? And we've all gone through that as the safety guy. When you get it dialed in, when you get with a crew that give you and do, and you get that teamwork going, it's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
And John, Mike, I thank you both for your time. Mike, you're doing this voluntarily, hosting live ECOS Livewire, and John, your company is basically in endorsing your time to be part of this show. And this is your story. Both of your story is part of what this is about. Like you said, John, collaborating, coming together as a line team. And what you brought today, John, to this group will live on. These nuggets, the treasure that you brought to us today, will be shared for many, many years after today. And they're truths that cannot ever disappear. They won't ever rust, and moth cannot ever eat the truths that you shared with us today. And Mike, thank you so much for bringing John on. And John, really appreciate your time here today, man. You were just like, I knew you're going to be stellar. Okay. And Mike, you always were, and appreciate everything that you both are doing for the industry. And we're doing it together. We're a power grid. We're connected, and we all are doing this together. And it's neat to see folks like you two, just getting on board, man, and just sharing the message of each other and that investment in people. It is great to see.
Yeah, cool. Cool. Hey, did you guys notice my T-shirt? It's Bucky's, Colorado, right? Bucky's just opened up in Colorado. It was for a while. It was the largest Bucky's. There's another one that just opened. It's a little bigger now. You guys ever been to a Bucky's?
I have not.
Oh,
No.
You know when I talked about a spiritual experience in the redwoods, well, you'll have one at Bucky's. You'll have one at Bucky's. So anyway, all right, guys.
His
Love you
teeth
both.
scare me too much.
Been fantastic.
Yeah, very good.
You know, John, we'll look forward to having you on again some other time.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And again, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. So,
all right. You guys be safe, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Thanks, John. Bye.
Bye.